Welcome to Why Wait? Look better, feel better, be your best from the inside out with me, Georgette LePage. Tune in each month as Dr. Pat Basili and I discuss topics that are often seen as roadblocks to weight loss. Each discussion will offer you practical solutions for transformational changes. Being healthy doesn't have to be hard or impossible. Empowering yourself with new strategies and new ideas can jumpstart your healthy journey and bring forth a tidal wave of joyful, positive results. I live and breathe what I teach. Allow me to be living proof of what can work for you. Your brain is your best asset, so you'll learn how to take charge of your thoughts, feelings, and actions. Are you ready for the real results you want? We'll see you there.
Wow. Hey, everybody. Welcome. Very important show today. Really important. You all have heard us talk about previously different forms of things we are discovering coming out of, I say coming out of because we're still doing it, moving into another phase of COVID. So that's why today, when you think about Why Wait, this is a fabulous show. Georgette LePage is a host of this show. I get to do this show with her. It's just an honor. But part of this too is to really go beyond the, how do I want to say it? Beyond the buzzwords, beyond those fancy dancy little postings you see like on your social media account, beyond the things that say just stop, that one. Because what we're about to talk about now has now been scientifically proven. We have so far moved beyond any of the guesswork around sugar and spice. Georgette LePage is somebody that has been in this profession helping countless people not just move beyond whatever you may feel your food issue is, but understand the psychology of it, the dynamics of it, what to do about it. And in the way that she does, meets you where you are. Why? Because when you read her own story, beyond living and breathing it, she knows how to experience it and understands besides the little punchline thingies that that your pop-up may give you or the email coming in. This is a topic about sugar and spice and how to lose weight during the holidays. And really what we're talking about now is with the acknowledgement that we understand more now about the science of sugar and the brain, and I guess spice, but more about it than we ever have. And so we cannot solve the problem at the level it was created. Einstein said it, but Georgette LePage has got the solution, right? I mean, this has been a new era of discovering the impact of sugar.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And what a great show today. I feel like they're all great, but they just keep getting better. They just keep snowballing from one to the next. And today is hugely important. And I say that because most people who I work with have an issue with sugar and sweets in some way. Very rarely will I have someone, I actually do have a client right now who says she does not, but have that issue, but most people do. And it's something ingrained in our culture. It's something we grew up with probably as kids. Throughout the years, the sugar industry has just come full force at us. And I think we're at a point now where it's time to learn more about, what sugar is, what it does to you, and how you can live sugar less or sugar free, and it be healthier for you. And I'm not an expert on sugar by any means, but I have studied for years about it simply because I knew that that was something that was holding me back at times from weight loss or keeping weight off, whether it was a few pounds or a whole bunch of pounds. It's something that we don't even think of, because if you stop and look at products and read labels, sugar is everywhere. Yeah. So today we're going to talk about, it's great timing because tis the season where it is everywhere. And so there are some great strategies on how to handle it differently this holiday season, because the holidays really already started in August when we saw pumpkins out and about in stores and the candy and the decorations and everything. It used to be a long time ago The holidays were the holidays, and you didn't see things, Christmas things in the summer, but things have changed, and retail is fast and early. So it really does start around August, although technically today I'm going to show you some secrets around the idea of what really a holiday is, what our season really is, and how we can flip the thinking on that so we can do something different.
Yeah. I mean, part of this too, and let's talk about this because you're going to share your story as well. Part of this for a lot of people, and not everybody has the same attraction, but there are memories, let's just call it. There are memories we may have. Now, some of you are thinking, no, I don't have good memories of the holiday. It doesn't matter if it's a good or bad memory. I'm going to make the connection for you right now. Because whether it's a good memory or bad memory, the thing that most people had used way back in the day, bring us to where we are, is to comfort yourself with that cookie, right? Okay. So it doesn't have to be a good memory or a bad memory, but whatever that thing is, there's an association. And if you know that association, this is the time to create change. Now, let's talk about how did you handle it? I want to know how you handled this because I know that this had to be a thing for you too,
Yeah, absolutely. And
right?
growing up, yes. And I am from a family of some outstanding bakers. I am not one of them. I
Me
have other
neither.
talents, but everybody else is. So growing up, we had it all. We had the holiday treats starting, around Halloween time. We had everything, and it was mostly homemade back then too. My mom was exceptional at that. And then, through the years, when it was, in my own house, it was store bought mostly, and sometimes I would attempt, but there are memories for me of, my grandparents, my grandmother in particular, who had the most fantastic sugar cookie recipe. And for me, in my mind, I needed to have that cookie and many servings of it several times a year, only at Christmas time, because that's what I associated the happy times of the holiday.
Yeah.
So the older I got and the more I could unravel that a little bit and unpack it and look at it, I could have made that cookie any time of year, or she could have made it for me any time of year. But in my mind, that was a happy memory of Christmas. So for me, I was going to go all out on that. And the older I got, the more I realized that I can't do that for every single kind of cookie that I love. And I still love them, but I couldn't do that anymore. It wasn't serving me. And the amount of sugar that I was intaking was pretty big at that time. So I started to be unhappy around holiday time. I would dread being maybe in a picture. Maybe it was a certain year that, oh no, I'm going to put myself in the back of the picture because I'm not don't feel good. Or I don't know. I thought I had to replicate every kind of cookie I ever had as a child. And funny how you can play tricks on your mind and create stories.
Yeah.
But it does start with our beginning and our programming and how we grew up. It doesn't mean you can't change that, because I'm here today to tell you that you can. It doesn't mean you can't enjoy the holidays. That's like one of the big messages today. You sure can, and there are ways to do that. We'll talk about. The first step, though, is looking at how do you celebrate your holidays.
Yeah. It's so important to really look at this. And also, right, you're going to talk about how do you celebrate the holidays, but how do you know how to understand discernment between I'm celebrating the holidays or I just need to numb myself right now? And and pull the holiday equation out. We are watching people just go through extraordinary numbing with sugar. But if but but if people really knew the impact of sugar, um, first of all, the brain does need sugar, but you get sugar when you eat a tomato. I'm just saying, right? Um, not an entire tiramisu cake. Um, and I remember this, and maybe you can talk to this because I grew up in a family where there was a lot of food. But I didn't grow up with a family of overweight aunts and uncles. I remember my uncle Bobby and Billy and Dickie. I mean, the whole range of them on my mom's side, and even my mom. And yet, when you sat down to eat, you ate. they didn't deprive themselves of a dessert, but I can't remember any of them really having a plate of 6 different desserts. That's what I can't remember. Now we're shifting to a whole different level, aren't we? Because it isn't just one cookie anymore, is it?
Mm. Yeah, you are so right. I have such fond memories of beautiful family dinners. And, we had a huge family on both sides, my mom's side, my dad's side. So we celebrated everything, but I don't remember it being, I don't know, I just remember it as being a great one-time deal. Yes, we had cookies here and there for the, cookies are, for everything, every holiday. I use that as an example, but it could be something else. But it wasn't an obsession. It wasn't like that's all we ate. The dessert came at the end, and when it was gone, it was gone.
Yeah.
And you had to wait till next Christmas, once the fudge was gone. You just waited. Although really now we know we could make it any time of year, but there was something that we kind of respected about the holiday meal in general. And I think that's
Hmm.
that's been deteriorating because we can have
Yeah.
anything at any time, anywhere, at all hours. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, the instant gratification, I think, in our culture today has made that a bit more difficult. So it
Yeah.
has
And
to come from within.
it does. And the other thing that I recall that has changed very much, and we're going to talk about this when we come back from break. We're going to take a very short break, 60 seconds, everybody. We'll be right back. The other thing I remember is the event of it. And it's very different than the event of it now. And the question mark really is for people, what are the holidays going to really mean to you? And and what are we doing with food now? How are we thinking about it now? Um, I don't need to go into the statistics. We don't need to do that. People can do it themselves. But we do need to update people on what the science is now showing, what happens with excessive sugar in the body. But when we come back, we'll hold that conversation for later on. Question is, what are you thinking about the holidays right now? Does just thinking about them make you run out and get those, what do you call them? I can't remember what Linda's favorite cookie is. Honestly, she eats them once a year and she cuts the thing in 16 pieces to eat it. It's got the raspberry stuff in it. But when we come back,
Oh,
what are the holiday memories? What are your
yeah.
thoughts right now? What are you thinking? And I want to just say to you out there listening, this is the time to call in and speak with Georgette. 1-800-930-2819. Jacob, if we could go to a really short break, when we come back, sweets everywhere. Do
Mm,
you eat them all? How do you not? Let's take a short break. We'll
yeah.
be right back. Welcome back to Why Wait? Look better, feel better, be your best from the inside out. This is Georgette LePage. She is the host of this fantastic show. Today, we're talking about sugar and spice and how to lose weight during the holidays. And before you can really take on how to lose weight during the holidays, it's so important the way that, Georgette, you're presenting this to say, wait a minute, let's just acknowledge what is and talk about what is and talk about what holidays mean. Before we get into what are we thinking now? What do we think about the holidays now? Where are you? Are you think about them the same way you did when you were 20, when you were 15? Do you try to recreate what you had then?
Mm.
Or are we not thinking about the holidays? And I'm not just saying wait till the holidays in December. I'm saying we're talking about things that are starting now. Before we get into this, it's really important for folks here to know how they can find out more about you, but even more importantly, how they can work with you, and tell them a little bit about how you do work with people.
Yes, yes. My website is georgettelepage.com. And I have a fantastic program right now called the 10-week Inside Out Melt Away program, which is laser focused on working on the inside thinking of how you are with your weight and some of the obstacles and challenges, so that we can make changes on the outside. It's a two-way process, inner and outer game. And once you buy into that, once you accept that and you're ready to work, the magic happens because it takes both ways. It is both
Mm.
things. And so I do one-on-one coaching, and you get me all to yourself and we can talk about the different details of that. You can find me on my website, get in touch with me. And right now
Mm-hmm.
seems maybe like a hard time to start something. Oh, I don't have time. It's too
Mm.
busy. It's the holidays. This is the perfect time. Perfect, because you can avoid feeling awful about yourself at the holidays if we start soon, like now.
And also, we're going to talk about this later on in the show. Whenever the topic comes up, people just roll their eyes and they think of sacrifice. But we're also
Mhm.
going to talk about making moderate changes
Yes.
in behavior, changes in thinking. Let's start out with thinking. What did the holidays mean to you? I mean, and what do they mean now? What do they mean when you were growing up? And you know, I mean, you and I are sitting here talking about it, and I will tell you that growing up, I was not the sugar kid. That
Mm.
not sugar in the form we're talking about. That doesn't mean that we were not consuming sugar, period.
Yeah.
But I wasn't the first kid to run for the candy. I wasn't that kid. Um, but as I got older, that changed. What changed? Why did it change? But what do the holidays really mean to you? And how has your view of them transformed over time?
Great question, because everyone has their own story.
Yes, they do.
And it's so neat how your story evolves as you do as a person. I mean, growing up, it was fabulous. I'm the oldest of six kids, and we have an extended, very large family on both sides. And it was we did it all for the holidays. But I do remember something now that we just talked about it that kind of reminded me. Sugar was a treat. Sugar wasn't necessarily available all the time. It was there, but if we had some cookies when they were gone, they were gone. If and you had to go fast with six kids, you had to be really fast with your cookie snatching. But it was different. It was not the main focus of things. Maybe at the holiday, at the end of a meal, we had a table of treats and goodies, and there were so many people that they were gone, and that's it. Next Christmas, we'll have that again. And as I got older, I tried to recreate a lot of that in my own family. And it worked for a while, but when I realized, even before we had my son, I was making all these cookies, just like I was trying really hard, just like my mom had, my grandmother had when we were growing up. And then I wanted to eat them all. I was missing the amount of people to share them with. So for a while, I still baked. I picked like 5, 6 different things at Christmas, for example, and I baked it and shared it with neighbors, and they were very happy. And then after a while, I thought, this is a lot of work for something I don't really love anymore, because I started not to love it as much, even the tasting of it. So kind of cut back on that. And last year I didn't make any.
Mm,
I think this year I might make one kind, and that's it. But I now take the pressure off myself to be Betty Crocker when I really never was. But in my head, the memory of happiness
yeah,
came from people that were able to make a lot of
yeah.
beautiful and tasteful things. Um, but that's not me, and that it doesn't serve me, because I will be more apt to eat it probably if it's in my house. So one of my strategies is to not have as many things around. I don't really go full cold turkey, if you want to call it that, but I'm really good. Like right now, I'm in a season of sugar free so that I don't overindulge. And that works for me. This is like the second or third year I've done it in a row. And it really opens my eyes to how
Yeah.
much is out there, and how much I used to tend to just try and taste, and how fast did that Halloween candy bowl go down?
Yeah.
Pretty fast.
It's fascinating we're talking about this because really it really leads to behavioral things. And I love that you're in a no sugar season now. Um, the good news for somebody like me is I grew up in New York City and then in New Jersey. And I will tell you this, and where I live both in New York and New Jersey up till my later teenage years, we did not have to bake because when you come from our culture, you go to the Italian bakery because
Mm.
nobody could cook like them and or to bake like them. So my grandmas and moms, all of them got off the hook. Now, that doesn't mean you didn't buy every type of dessert I'm serious, right? For the holidays. Because if you know anything about these bakeries, you get these little small things and then they get like 50 of them. But the point is this: when we think about the holiday and the fact that you're starting this now, it's a great time to start, because aren't we talking about a cycle of body mind right here that has to start to get used to something new?
Yeah, you're right. And it takes about 66-ish days to form a habit. So if you start something now, by the time you get to Christmas or Hanukkah, whatever you celebrate, it will be so much easier because all the
Mm-hmm.
cravings will be so less, if not gone. You maybe will have lost, probably will have lost some weight if that's what you're trying to do.
Mm-hmm.
And you'll be much happier and you won't want to reach for as many things as you used to. It's
Yeah.
so neat. The one thing too to mention is that in our minds, we say, the holiday season is from, say, Halloween typically till New Year's Day.
Yeah.
And if you celebrate different things, then it's a bit different for you. And if you're in a different country, it's different for you, maybe.
Yeah.
But in our mind, it's the full on 3 months,
Yeah.
91 days. Let's go.
Yeah.
In reality, Halloween is one day, Thanksgiving is one day, Christmas is one day plus a little bit of Christmas Eve, and then we have New Year's Day. So we technically have 4 holidays that in our minds we tell us need to last for 91 days. So we have a very distorted look at what the holiday season really is. And for some of us, we just let it go. We
Mm-hmm.
are full on. We're going to eat everywhere we go. We're going to make extra portions, of course. We've talked about this before, are bigger than normal, than they used to be, I should say. They're just bigger. And so we have to really put it in perspective. Maybe like one of my hacks is, if you're gonna have a treat on, Halloween, say, make it just on Halloween, not the whole month leading up to Halloween. So there are little things you can do, or for Thanksgiving, maybe you're trying to reduce, your desserts. Pick one and make it quality. Go for quality instead of having two different kinds of pie. Make it one slice of something really good that you're
Yeah.
going to eat slowly and enjoy. That's one of the things that I do now. I go for quality over quantity, and it's kind of nice.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. And that is what I would say is a fundamental change of, different phases in my life. The other thing was really interesting. I was talking to somebody the other day, and I know we're going to talk about this more, is that they were saying, we're talking about Halloween, right? And I'm
Mm,
in a new house now, a different neighborhood. So I'm going to get kids. And they said, da 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 da, candy. And I said, I'm not going to do that this year. And they said, well, what are you going to do? I said, I'm going to put dollar bills in an envelope. They said, oh my gosh, you're going to be so expensive. I said, do you know how much I spent on candy in that last year? I said, when I tallied up the candy, the bags of the whatever they are, because you got to get them wrapped now. I said, by the time I tallied that up, it was darn near $100. And I said, I didn't even know it was, because I don't think you go to the store, you throw it in the cart, right?
yeah.
You're not really looking. You're not looking at a bag of something that's $14.95, right? Um, but that's just me. And I said, what do you do with the leftovers? I said, I had these leftovers. So this is also part of what we have to talk about.
Yeah.
If you have, let's just call it something left over, whether it's a Halloween candy, a chocolate cake, why do we think we have to eat that?
Yeah. Yeah, that is so good. I'm currently working with someone who's having problems um eating all the leftovers, like while they're still in the pan while she's cleaning up. And she said, I don't understand. And we talked through it. And it
Mm-hmm.
turns out it's because she was brought up being told to clean your plate.
Yeah.
And so she feels guilty. And it's not serving her very well. So we've talked about quickly packaging up the leftovers and freezing them. Don't even put them in the fridge. Just go right to the freezer.
Yeah.
Label them when you need them. You take them out as a meal or a small meal or snack. And she said, I never thought of that. I thought I had to finish them all. And I think we are used to, it's there, we're going to eat it. I mean, one couple years ago, I had this big bowl of Halloween candy and is sitting on the dining room table, which is not a good idea for me. But I decided to do something. I was wondering how much is that really impacting me if I ate all this candy and grabbed. So I put it upside down and turned it upside down over the dining room table. And I just looked at what it all was. Nothing
Wow.
was good for me. It was probably going to go to places I didn't want it to go, because that's where your sugar tends to go. So it's
Right.
kind of like that you are what you eat. So I'm picturing all these, candy bars wherever I don't want them to be. And I thought, wow, I don't need this. This is not serving me. So I put it all back in. I
Yeah.
actually ended up putting it on top of the refrigerator so I wouldn't get close to it. And I waited to take it out till Halloween, and then I immediately gave the
Wow.
rest of it away. But there are little things like that. If you stop and think
Hmm.
that maybe instead of the whole bowl of something, maybe you just need a little bit. You don't have to go cold turkey, because that's hard.
I know.
That's
It's
really hard.
fascinating though, because here's the thing. And I noticed this, one of our producers brought in donuts. We have a couple of new people here, but I noticed that nobody takes the whole donut.
Yeah.
I mean, you open the donut thing and you see, and they're the best donuts around. I can't even take. This is a little place right around the corner from us that nobody even knows about. They put bacon on top of their like maple donuts, right?
Oh,
But when you go in the room, once upon a time, and I remember this, nobody would cut a donut. You wouldn't even think to cut a donut. Do you know what I'm saying? You would
yeah.
take a donut, the whole thing. Now I'm looking at these little pieces people are,
Yeah.
and it used to be you brought in a full dozen donuts and now you don't. But the question really is, we're going to talk about this when we come back. I just would like to know from you all out there, don't you really want to flip a habit now? I mean, wouldn't you love to learn something that could flip just one thing, just maybe one thing today? Then you can work with Georgette on the rest. But what if when we come back, we talk about what the unhealthy habits are? We're going to nail those
Yeah.
down. We're going to get down into the mud on them. But what if you could flip them? And I'm going to say this, what if it was easier than you could even imagine? Jacob, let's take a short break. When we come back, we're going to tackle that. But first, you got to figure out what the unhealthy habit. It may not be anything that Georgette and I just talked about. May have
Yeah.
nothing to do with any of that. Nothing. But you know what it is. Let's take a short break. We'll be right back.
Mhm.
Hey, everybody, welcome back. Now is the time. This is what we're talking about. How do you flip unhealthy holiday habits into healthy ones? First of all, you got to know what they are. So, Georgette, one of the things that you do, and let's make sure everybody has your website, is you have to really figure out where is the foundation of this change that you want. Where are we foundationally? And believe it or not, I'm not saying who it is, but there might be people, maybe like me, that didn't even realize they had an unhealthy habit. You see what I'm saying? Because we do not see ourselves well. We do not see ourselves well. And I'm just gonna mention something when we come back. But how do people work with you? Because you have to see what it is you want to change before you change it. This is not a random act of change.
Exactly. And it starts from the inside and pushes out. And until I personally learned that, I was just kind of doing the same mistakes over and over again. And I would
Hmm.
lose the same 5, 10-ish pounds over and over again.
Hmm.
So on my website, georgettelepage.com, it has a lot of content on there, a lot of blogs. Our link, of course, to the podcast here. Please go back
Yeah.
and watch some shows, because they're kind of sequential. They're sequential. It's like we're telling a story. And you can work with me one-on-one. This is the absolute most wonderful time of the year to get
Yeah.
started, so that when you get to the holidays, your holiday can be different.
Yeah.
So georgettelepage.com, get on there, contact me through there. And you'll find my social media links on there as well. And there's a lot of great stuff. I do something actually on Fridays called Fun Fact Friday. where I put out videos of something healthy, something fun, something interesting. And I have some really cool things that you can learn from there. But it takes one action step, just one, to get started. And so
Yeah.
that's why we're here today, to talk about how to get this rolling now.
Okay, I'm going to just tell you. So let's talk about unhealthy habits, because
Mhm.
people are thinking, and maybe they're rolling their eyes on this, but I want to talk about what an unhealthy habit is, because it doesn't look like one. See, the real ones that look and breathe and smell and taste like unhealthy, you can spot them a mile away, right?
Yeah.
Right. We're talking about the ones where you got the donuts for the dozen for the group, and you got two for the car for you to finish before you get to work. Okay,
Yeah.
so nailed you on that, right? But that's not how this works. So here it is. A lot of turmoil in small businesses about anybody that owns a staff. On any given day, somebody's out, you make adjustments. So you have to figure out how to fix that. But if you're a business owner, you are doing the strangest behavioral things now, because I'm seeing myself. You're getting up at 4, and then you're calling your nutritionist because you don't know why you're asleep at 6. Hello.
Mhm.
Or you're getting up at 4 and you're not asleep at 6, and you think you could stay up till 11. Now, why am I even mentioning something that's not about sugar? But it is. Because when we are at a low point, or we are at a point that is out of our best physical, mental, and emotional state, isn't that where we go for the comfort food?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yes. And we are, we are a nation of comfort food, and you see it on TV. Just eat that, you'll feel better. When you're sick, you need this. Yeah, we have gone, especially again, I can't help but mention the last 2.5 years, almost 3 now.
3.
Yeah, we have every excuse in the book that we've used. I'm lonely, I'm upset, I'm nervous, I'm scared. So many things. We've been over drinking, overeating,
Oh boy.
over purchasing, over everything. And this really could be your first holiday where you put the brakes on that.
Yeah.
You get control, and you decide, all right, those overindulging behaviors are not working for me anymore. And my body has paid the price. And chances are a lot of other things have too. Your sleep is affected. You mentioned that. We need sleep. Your body's like a factory. And when you go to sleep, it recovers, recharges, and re energizes. It can't do that if you're not asleep or if you're still eating. Can't do two things like that. And so when the factory's open, you need to be sleeping. You need to be, still. It affects everything, our mood, how we treat people, how we treat ourselves. It's so inward and outward at the same time. And we have suffered. And now is the time to pick yourself up and look yourself in the mirror, look at yourself and say, enough. I'm
Yeah.
doing something differently. I'm not going to fall into the excuse that I'm upset. I'm not discounting when people do feel, very upset and depressed. That is completely different. And I hope people would get help quite quickly for that.
Yeah.
There are so
Yeah.
many resources. This is I'm down in the dumps. I'm feeling low. I'm defeated feeling. I don't know. I'm in this spot now. I'm this many pounds more than what I was. I don't know what to do. And it didn't take you overnight to get there, which in our minds we tell ourselves it did.
Yeah.
Oh, it came on right away. It probably didn't, but it can start to come off 1 pound at a time by making these changes. And I
Mhm.
promise you, when you make one change, you make changes in other ways too. And
Yeah.
it just snowballs.
And I want to just say to folks listening to this, is one of the things that you heard me talk about on previous shows is we always want to make you aware that if you are on a medication, this show is where you talk to your doctor. This is
Yeah.
where you find out, what is the medication I'm on? What is the impact of it? What can I do differently? If it is, I shared my story about the gabapentin. And
Yeah.
then when I realized it and I started to tell people, they're like, oh, you didn't know that? And I'm like, okay, no,
Yeah.
but you can be aware of it. You could also take your medication and be aware of what you're putting in your body. One of the things we're not talking about here, but I do want to bring it up because we're talking about flipping unhealthy habits. For years, people didn't know or didn't understand the relationship with alcohol products,
Mhm.
whether it's vodka or beer, bread, right? So we're
Yeah.
not even talking about those conversions today very much. We're talking
Yeah.
about pure sugar. But
Yeah.
some of these other foods, like that box you just took off the grocery shelf that you did not read the label, it's got something in it called, like, what is it? Cornstarch or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
But this is also what we have to do, a change of habit, read the label, right?
Absolutely. You got to admit, our food has changed in the last 20, 30 years, maybe even longer. It's so processed, and there are so many things in there to preserve the food so it stays on the shelf longer. And if you were to really just pick a couple of ingredients that you start to look for and turn the label around, and if it has so many things on there that you can't pronounce, it's probably not good for you. And there are other things that you could have instead, but it really takes a lot to flip that label and start making some choices based on that. And
Yeah.
sugar, like I said, there are so many different ways of sugar, that sugar is named, that you may get a little confused. It's not just sugar, it can be so many things.
Yeah.
And you just have to kind of learn and do your research. What I also love to do is work with people once they've been to their doctor and their doctor has said, your lab results are not good, you're high in cholesterol, or you're right there on the bubble, or you've got 20 pounds, 30 pounds, 40 pounds to take off, or even 10. It doesn't really matter. They send you out the door and tell you to lose weight or eat better. And you walk out the door and you don't know what to do. That's where a coach comes in. And I'm not a nutritionist or a doctor, and nor do I try to be one. But boy, can I help you with some habits that do include a lot of very specific things about when to eat, what to eat, and why to eat. The three W's, W's rather, I call them. And there's a lot you can do. So once you do get that diagnosis, you respect what your doctor says, but now you may need another step. And that's where a lot of the health coaches are coming in, which is so wonderful. We have like a blank canvas with somebody, because they want to get different results. So yeah, there's a lot, and be aware too, we're not going to talk so specifically about sugar, but it is like a drug. It has been compared to heroin. I'm going to use the
Yeah.
drug
It has, for
too.
sure. Yeah.
And it gives you a hit of dopamine that excites you, and unfortunately it makes you want more.
More.
And
Yeah.
once you have just try it, have a little something sweet, give it only a few minutes, and you will be looking for more. And it's once you realize that, that's how you stop it, is once you realize, and you do differently, before reaching into that bowl of Halloween candy and you look and it's half gone, you're like, who's been in the bowl?
Yeah.
And it's you. um that hit just took effect and you may not have even realized it. And so it's dangerous, but if you're not ready to cut it out completely, there are so many ways on how to
Yeah.
reduce it, and how to feel better, and really get some changes starting.
That is and let's talk about that, because that is a change that I made a number of years ago. And it's an old one where right about this time you start to think, you start to get out whatever the holiday dishes are, and what do you put in them?
Mhm. Mhm.
Um, you don't put in vitamins. You're thinking, I'm going to put in this little special candy, and you're going to leave it out. You leave it out in your house, or you leave it out in your workplace. I mean, you leave it out. Even if you only have people that fly by maybe once every 2 weeks, it's still out there. That is one thing that was a conscious thing. I said, I'm not doing it. And I stopped doing it. The other thing I want to ask you about, because you mentioned it, and we're going to go ahead and skip this next break because I want to just get right to why take the action now. There's a lot of reasons, and one of them is you have to take a first step.
Mhm.
You're not going to solve everything, but you're going to get the reward, and you're going to get the great feeling from taking that first step. I don't know anybody that doesn't feel good about that first step. But the other thing I wanted you to talk about is behaviorally change things. Behaviorally, you can change things. What about everything starting up again? So you're
Mhm.
starting up with potlucks, right? The
Yeah.
dreaded potluck is starting
Yeah.
up again. We went through 3 years where we didn't do that. You had your own potluck. So we have the potluck where you can reduce things. But the other thing to think about is it isn't always extra exercise that reduces the sugar craving. See, this is a disconnect. I had a donut, I'm going to do 15 minutes more on a treadmill. And then as soon as you're done, you're looking for the donut, right? So, can you talk about this? Because this is a misconception people have. I'm going to eat that thing, but then I'm going to do the treadmill as if the craving will go away, and it doesn't.
Yeah, and that's been misinformation for many years. That's how
Yeah.
many of us grew up thinking. Just exercise more and it'll take it off. You cannot out exercise or outrun or outwalk your food. You cannot do it. Because I run, I will say I can't outrun my food. And it's one of my favorite sayings. And it's so true. You should get out there. You should walk. You should
Yeah.
exercise for your heart, for your mind. But it's not going to last very long to overeat and then exercise. It actually, think about what a waste that is. If you just cut down your food a bit, change some things, some habits, and still exercised, it's a win-win.
Yeah.
So you see the person, you know right before Thanksgiving, that's where you see the most walkers and runners in the morning because they're getting ready, they think, to make room. And that's not how it goes. If it were, we would have figured this out already, and it would be so easy. But that's not how it goes. You have to watch what you eat. You have to eat intentionally at certain people have to eat at a certain time. It's better for their digestion. There's so many things. It's not a one size fits all.
Mhm.
So just because Emily down the street just dropped 30 pounds with keto and she's not eating a thing and she looks great, doesn't mean that's for you,
No, no,
and
I can
you
tell you
don't.
keto is not for me.
Right,
It did
right.
not work for me.
It's
It
actually for a very small percentage of the population. It's not a sustainable type of
and it's
eating.
not for everybody. I mean, it
No.
wasn't for me at a lot of levels. First of all, it wasn't my at my taste bud level. I can't even imagine in any given day. I mean, it's for some people it worked, but in
Yeah,
any given day, I don't live my life eating that much fat. I'm
yeah,
more of a protein person. But here's a couple of
yeah.
questions that came in, and they're really good
Oh,
ones.
good.
One of the questions, I got to look at my phone. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
One of the questions is, okay, is this a myth? I was working with somebody and I was working on sugar, and they said to me, when you eliminate sugar, you have to eliminate sweet potatoes and beets. And I can't read the third one. Sweet potatoes and beets, and whatever the third one is. We get your point right here, Millie. Thank you, Millie. Uh, okay, I don't know how true that thing is. I mean, honestly,
Yeah.
I'm not quite sure unless you're
Yeah.
like binging sweet potatoes. And yes, beets are a sugar type vegetable, but I'm lucky if the only way I eat beets if they're in a separate bowl and the color doesn't get on the rest of my food. Okay, so that's a thing. But this is a
Yeah.
great question.
It's a great question. And just because it's called sweet potato does not mean it is bad for you. It's actually one of the best types of
Yeah.
potatoes. And there are white sweet potatoes and red and purple,
Yeah.
a whole bunch of things. No. Now, if you only eat sweet potatoes, you're needing other things. But no, that is untrue. I
Yeah, I
can
think what Millie is
100% say
saying
that.
is that
Yeah.
when they did the sugar thing, they were told to cut out sweet vegetables. I just got a reply back. Okay, thank you for that. Next question, I want to get
Yeah.
this in because they said we mentioned it. We talked about eating different times a day.
Mm,
Um, so everybody abbreviates when these come in. So I'm going to do my
yeah.
best. And I think this is from Josie, but let me just see if I can get it out there. Okay. Is there a rule about when not to eat at night? And I'm going to address this from my perspective on my schedule, but
Yeah.
Georgia, and if I get a craving, can I eat I think this is hard boiled egg.
Hmm.
Two
Okay.
questions. Do we
Okay.
have this time police on this? And honestly, for me, if I'm up at 4 in the morning, I have two issues. I'm not really eating anything till about 8 or 9 o'clock in the morning. That is like a thing. But then if I end my day early, right?
Mhm.
So can you talk to the two-part thing? One,
Yeah.
is there like a clock for eating?
Yes. I
An
would
eating
love,
clock.
exactly. I would love to say it's yes for everybody, but it's not. But again, here's that visual of your body being a factory. And if you're not giving it long enough to burn off the stored fat and the food that you have put into it
At night, you mean?
at night, yep, if you don't stretch that out and you're a nighttime eater, you're interrupting the amount of energy that your body
Good.
is trying to burn off. And you want it to come from your fat stores. So it can't do that if you're still feeding it. So I would say there's no exact time. I like to stretch out my eating quite a bit, from dinner to the next meal. I don't even call it breakfast anymore because it's more
Yeah.
toward the noontime. Some people can do that. Takes a while to figure that out. Just because it's 8 o'clock in the morning doesn't mean it's breakfast for everybody. Every body is different. And some people just don't like to eat in the morning, and that's fine too. So there's no right or wrong. There are examples of ways to do both, to have a regular breakfast, regular lunch, regular dinner. I will say, I'm sorry to tell everybody, but snacking interrupts your factory. Your factory cannot, your body cannot burn off what you put into it if you are still giving it more fuel. So I know it used to
Okay.
be that
At night.
time
At night,
at
you mean, or
night
during the day?
and sometimes during the
Okay.
day, depending. Yeah. So, and that's kind of up for debate. That's one of those hot topics. But I would say if you're trying to lose weight, that would be the first place to start,
Yeah. Yeah.
is having your meals and then lots of water in between.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
And the egg, I just want to finish
the
up here
egg.
with her
Yeah.
egg. That is a much better choice. That's what I call a swap, right? That is much better than a bag of chips or, something else, pretzels or something. So I think you're making a great choice if you feel like you're really, truly hungry, which is an entire different episode. That's like so important.
It is.
Or is it just a habit? Are you eating that egg because you're up and you can't sleep? And what else is there to do? So you have to ask the
Yeah.
why.
I'll tell you, for me, on the days that I go play, if I'm not eating enough protein, I'm grabbing a hard boiled egg, but I don't eat the yolk. So, or I eat partial yolk. I don't know where that thing came from, but there are some days where it's a thing and some days that it's not. Thank you for those
Yeah.
questions.
Yeah. Great
Um,
questions.
because they all tie into the conversation. We're talking today really mainly sugar for people. And
Yeah.
of course, we may do another show
Yeah.
about the upside down, sideways view of snacking and what
Yeah.
it is and when it should work and when it could work. But
Yeah.
thank you for pointing out to people that not everybody has to have breakfast in the morning. It is not
Yeah.
for everyone.
Yeah.
I'm not a breakfast person.
No, I
Um,
no longer am either. And I, grew up 3 meals a day. Let's go. Gotta have breakfast.
yeah,
And not so much at this point for me.
yeah.
Maybe earlier I did, but yeah, that's certainly a habit.
Now, I will tell you, I am adjusting because, when you get up at 4 and you're
Mm-hmm.
in the office in studio at a point in time, by the time 8 o'clock comes around, think about it. For most people, if you're at work at 8 or 9, and you add 4 hours onto it, that is a time where you might be hungry. So you have to really pay
Yeah.
attention to your clock.
Yeah.
I want to ask you a couple things. I want to recap on this because I want to be clear for people today. We
Yeah.
didn't spend a whole lot of time on carbohydrate conversion. That's another
Mm-hmm.
topic and show. But
Yeah.
we are talking to be really super mindful of sugar in the form of, desserts, but sugar that comes in packages of things, right?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
can you bring us home and kind of talk about what action we could take today and then what your message is for folks around
Yeah.
this?
Yeah. And as you learn more about sugar and what it is, and for some of us, those little pink and blue packets and yellow packets were just how we kind of dodged some calories. But what we're finding out now is there were other things in there.
Oh
And
gosh, yeah.
it really I know it used to tear up my stomach until finally I said, "What's wrong with me?" And I'm like, "Oh my gosh, I'm putting that packet in everything to get that sugar taste." So moderation is also a huge piece of my coaching. Not everyone can eliminate, food groups or foods that hurt their stomach and make them feel terrible, but a lot of people can cut back. So as we've talked about a little bit today, I don't want to scare anyone to not eating
Yeah.
anything, but think about what you're eating and how much of it you're eating, and of course why you're eating it, right? Um, and there are a lot of things about, how we make things sweet. And did you realize a banana is just as wonderful tasting as a piece of pie? I know that's a hard sell,
No, but
but
it's really true though. I
yeah,
mean, for some people, a banana like does it all,
yeah,
really.
yeah. And once I take out sugar, and I reduce it and I'm very careful with it, some fruits are actually too sweet for me. Like I tried to eat a date one time and it was delicious, but it's so sweet. And I thought, wow, I didn't think that.
It
I
is.
took fruits for granted. And so that's something to think about. And as you move through the holidays, as we get started, just be really mindful of how you celebrate and how you would like to try to celebrate differently. And you don't have to take everything out. You can still celebrate.
Mhm.
Maybe just swap it out, and we could do a whole show on swaps and
We
different
should
things
talk
like
about
that.
swaps because
We
I mean,
should.
it's different for
We're-
everybody.
Yeah.
I was telling a friend of mine who said to me, "Don't do that." And I thought, well, wait a minute, I'm just going to tell Georgette. I love grapefruit, but I don't like cold grapefruit. So I will get already peeled organic grapefruit. I have a giant container of it in my fridge, but I like it out of the fridge, sitting on a counter. And they
Yeah.
said, "How much grapefruit do you eat?" And I said, "I don't count."
Mm.
And the comment was interesting, and we'll save this for another show. You can eat too much grapefruit. And then that one comment had me modified my grapefruit intake. Why do I like grapefruit? I think my dad used to eat it. I think I
Mm.
developed a taste for it. Most people just snarl at me about it. But
Yeah.
for me, I just love it. Now, when we do a show, we need to talk about some of these untruths that we've been
Yeah.
told by people that don't know,
Yeah. Good
right?
point. Because
Right?
that's
Now,
what confuses people, and
it confuses.
that's what makes it's
Yeah.
so hard to know
Yeah.
what to start doing.
Yeah.
I
And
agree.
that comment was enough for me to cut back my grapefruit, but I've since modified it. Thank you for today. What do you want to leave us with? Thank you so much for this.
Thank you. I love this so much. I'm so passionate about this, mainly because I do it.
Yeah.
And you want to find a coach that does this and just doesn't tell you that this is a great idea. She or he has to be living this way.
Yeah.
And my big message today is that the holidays are what you make them. They're actually 4 days, not 91 days. So that might be a good reason to look at that. You don't have to give up everything. You do not. You can modify, with your end goal in mind. How do you want to feel and look on that holiday? Are you going to hide behind everybody else for a picture? Are you going to stay out of the picture taking? Are you going to wear a costume this year that you never would dare to before at Halloween? What are you going to do? Are you going to still have that big bowl of candy? You have to decide what works for you and what no longer serves you, and how to take a holiday memory, preserve it, cherish it, and maybe try a new one.
I love it. And believe me, one of the things Georgette just talked about today that I want to hold everybody and just make sure when you go back and listen to this, so many options. And I hope we do a show on what the options are,
Yeah.
because I don't think people know. Like
Yeah.
even the comment about the banana, you could feel people cringing. I was told never to eat bananas. Georgette LePage, I'm Dr. Pat Jacob. Thank you so much. And remember, start thinking about a new way of being. Start thinking about it now. Start small and see where you go, but make sure you work with somebody that could help you along the way. All right, everybody. Thank you for tuning us in, turning us on. We'll see you next time.
You've been listening to Why Wait? Look better, feel better, be your best from the inside out with me, Georgette LePage. Tune in each month as Dr. Pat Basili and I tackle topics that are often seen as roadblocks for weight loss. Being healthy doesn't have to be hard or impossible. This show leaves you feeling empowered with new strategies and ideas to jumpstart your new health journey. If you're interested in finding out more about me, visit GeorgetteLePage.com.